Living Transplant is a podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the transplant program at Toronto General Hospital with the goal to educate, inspire, and fuel your passion about transplant. I'm your host, Candice Coghlan. In this episode, I'm joined by Ivica, an opera singer who loves baking, teaching others, and above all else, his family. Ivica discusses his journey with kidney failure and how his brother stepped forward to be his donor, giving him back the strength to sing beautifully. Later, we're joined by Margot Mitchell, a retired social worker who worked over 20 years at UHN. She speaks of the importance of good mental health and how we can all move through grief to gratitude. Enjoy. Welcome back to the Living Transplant podcast. Today, I am very excited to have a guest joining me, Ivica, who's going to talk to us today about his journey with living donation and his kidney transplantation, as well as his amazing journey as an opera singer. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. My name is Ivica. I'm a kidney transplant recipient, 32 going on 33, and still trying to be an opera singer despite some setbacks. Singing opera is kind of all-consuming sometimes just because there's so many things to do with it. It's not just singing, you got to act, you got to movement, languages, all this stuff. I like languages, but then that also relates back to singing. I love television, sitcoms. I mean, life's already dreary enough. So when people are like, watch a horror film, I'm like, not happening.
Right.
I'll watch any comedy you can throw at me, but anything else. I'll watch every Hallmark movie. I think I watched everything with my mom, right? I unabashedly love those.
Amazing.
Because I think it's just the whole, you know what's happening.
Yeah.
Our lives as transplants recipients is you never know what's going to happen, right? You kind of have an idea, but it's just like, whereas those ones, they're formulaic. You know what's going to happen. No matter how bad the dialogue is or the chemistry, you're just like, okay, I know it comes to a happy ending. And so it's kind of nice. It's like a refuel.
Yes.
I used to be a rugby and football player, so that was part of me. You know, I'm a bigger guy, so I always enjoyed that. I'd say the NFL is a guilty pleasure because I know how bad. I know normally people wouldn't say that, but for me it is. It's because of what football meant to me. But I still enjoy watching it. I've taken up baking. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a pastry chef. I enjoy baking, especially with you know all the dietary restrictions we have, or at least when we're on dialysis now.
Yeah.
That was a big thing. I lost 100 pounds while I was on dialysis, so that was another thing. I mean, a lot of it was water, obviously, but some of it wasn't, right? And so now I'm finding it's a little different because when you're on dialysis and you want to eat low carb, it's pretty easy because you can just eat all the protein you want because they're like, load up on protein, it's fine. And now it's the exact opposite. And I was just like, oh, so I'm struggling with that a bit, but you know, working on it.
So can you bring us back to before the kidney transplant, when you were touring and singing and when you started to notice that things were a little bit different with your health and what that was like?
I guess I'll go back to 2017. I was still quite healthy and I was in Germany doing a summer program. And so I used to be a baritone and then they're like, you're actually a tenor, so you should retrain. And I was like, okay, which is hard enough already, but I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I retrained and then it took me a while, but I think at the beginning of 2019, so January 2019, everything kind of started to work. And I was feeling great. And like my voice was like, I'm ready. And I was 29 at the time. So I'm just on the cusp of aging out, but I'm ready for everything. I went for an audition and I was like, I sang that okay, but not as well as I used to. And I'm like, that's fine. And then I think by June, I'd gone for a coach because that's really the only extreme kind of physical exertion I would have had to really show if I was really getting tired or not.
Okay.
Otherwise, like there was no measure. Whereas my voice, you have to be at kind of top health to be able to do what I was doing. And in June, I went for a coaching and I was singing the same arias and I kept getting tired. And I was like, maybe I oversang, maybe I didn't warm up enough. I don't know, right? I mean, at the same time, I'm also gaining weight and I was quite depressed. So gaining weight I've always been big, right? So it was nothing new. And I was just like, well, this is par for the course, right? And so I didn't really think of it all that much. I mean, I'd seen some swelling and I was like, well, I'm for anybody who's interested, like I'm Eastern European and Eastern European people, it's not salt with their food, it's food with their salt, right? So I wasn't like overly surprised, right? I was like, oh, okay, eat less salt, you'll be fine, right? and the swelling would kind of go down. I was like, okay, that's probably what it is. And then I guess in October, I had an audition with the Opéra de Montréal. I hope I said that right. Montreal Opera. And I remember going in and I sang my first aria and I crushed it. Like it's the best I'd ever sung in my entire life. I
Wow.
was like, and then they asked for a second one and my body basically just gave out.
Oh,
I was just like, I tried to sing and I made it through, but it was just like, I could see the looks on their faces, right? Because I saw the looks on, normally audition panels are very stoic and unemotional, right?
right.
And the first hour, they were like, yeah, holy crap. And then the second hour, they were like, wait, something's not right here. I'm like, sure,
Yeah.
you got through one area, but you didn't get through a second one. And then just before that audition, so the audition's at the COC on Front Street for anyone, it's in Toronto.
Hmm.
And then I was walking from Union Station to the audition space, which is about a half-hour walk. And I never get nervous before auditions. I get a little anxious because I want to sing, but
Right.
I'm usually relaxed. I know I'm prepared, stuff like that. And this is, from walking from Union to there, I found every single place that I could have thrown up and like hidden it because I was so nauseous, so
Oh,
like I thought I was, and I'm like, I'm wearing a suit. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, what's going on? And
right.
like I found every flower pot, every garbage can. I was just like freaking out. And then I got there and I kind of calmed down and it was okay. But then the same thing, like on the way back, when I took the train back home, I was just like, oh man, there's no bathroom here. I'm like, what am I going to do? Right.
Right.
And I didn't think, I was
Oh,
like, maybe it was just all the stress from the audition. Like I didn't really think of it all that much. And then I got sick. So I go to my doctor and she measures my blood pressure and the machine she has measures it 6 times. And she's like, the average blood pressure was, I think, 230 over 140.
oh my
And
goodness.
she was like, you have to go straight to the hospital.
Oh
Like
my
you're
goodness.
right. And even when I got to the hospital, they measured it like 4 more times before they did anything. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna do your blood work.
Right.
And they're like, okay, yeah, your creatinine is 500. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, right? And they're, I'm like, what's it supposed to be? They're like 100. And I was like, oh, okay, that's probably not good. So they're like, you have very high blood pressure and your kidney's not working. We don't know which one it is, right? Kind of chicken and egg. We're gonna figure out which one's affecting which. So they admit me, and then I have a biopsy, and they're like, "Yeah, your kidney's fried. Like you
Oh,
have you're stage 5. You need transplant." And so I was very fortunate. I mean, I cried. Like they told me, and then like the nurse is like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, don't worry." I cried for half an hour. I'm like, "We just got to move on, right? There's nothing we can really do."
yeah. That's the wild thing, right? That often when I talk to people about their journey and people will ask them, like, how did you get through everything? And there's no other choice, right?
Yeah,
It's just what's
yeah.
next? What are we going to do next, right? Like we have to keep going forward because we don't want to stay where we are, but it's a different situation. Like you said, you're surrounded by people who are triple your age and you are in this new weird world of this brand new diagnosis with no information and you're just thrown into it.
Yeah, I remember, I think the next day my doctor came in. I was sitting on the bed and I was like, my only question was, I'm like, how much of this was because of how big I am, like how heavy I am? He's like, none of it. He's like, if that was the case, like everybody would have it, right? It's not just you. What he told me was, he's like, all you really can control is your weight, like, right? So that's all you have to focus on. If you can lose weight, like that's, you can get the transplant, just everything's better, right? And so that's all I really could focus on. And so they told me I had IgA nephropathy. So it's basically where the white blood cell that floods the kidney and then it kind of damages the nephron. What happened was both my brothers were like, "Yeah, no problem. We're gonna do it." And I was like, "Okay, great." And the renal coordinator gave all the forms that both my brothers needed to my mom. She's like, "Here, they need to fill this out. They got to do these tests.
Hmm.
That's it, right?" And so and I was very lucky. I was just like, obviously you're feeling like crap because they're lowering my blood pressure. I'm trying not to faint, all this stuff, and you're trying to process all this news. But at the same time, I'm like, "Oh, this is really good." I'm like, I wasn't as afraid as maybe I had been an only child or my brothers weren't maybe healthy enough or
Right.
unwilling to donate. As part of me kind of feels almost undeserving. Like I was on dialysis, right? But you're kind of like, people who are there for like, or desperately need one. And I was just like, I was as soon as I found out I had two, right? It was just like, holy cow.
Yeah. I feel you with that one. My mom was my donor. And similarly, while I was the crash start in hospital and they were telling me about dialysis, she was asking them, how do I get started to know if I can donate a kidney to get her off dialysis? So I was on dialysis 15 months. And for me, it felt like a lifetime because dialysis is terrible.
Yeah.
And I would never wish that on anyone. But in the big scheme of things, like 15 months is so fast. Like
Yeah.
you said, there's some people who wait 7, 8 years to get a kidney. And I had tons of people who were willing to step up. And I agree with you. I sometimes there's that like strange feeling of guilt that
Yeah.
you got one so
It
fast.
is, yeah,
And
it's
like,
totally.
but I mean, trying to turn that into gratitude, and we're lucky that we have such amazing families that
Mhm.
we have those people in our lives to do that for us.
Yeah, it was because I remember my doctor said, he's like, you're 7 to 10 years.
Oh.
Like, you're gonna wait, right? I mean, I had to start dialysis, right? And I was on for 23 months, just under 2 years. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was like, it was crazy because it was just, you don't realize how sick you are, right? But at the same time, I think as I was on dialysis, the not that the guilt went away, but the gratitude certainly increased because I started with 3 times a week for four
Mhm.
hours. And then after a year, they increased me to 4 times a week. And so I was already like, well, that's not a good sign, right? I mean, I had the central catheter. And so
Mhm.
the clearance isn't as high. I mean, for anybody who hasn't been on dialysis, you have speeds that you can pump at. And I had to pump at 400, so the top speed you could for 4 hours. Like, and then I was okay. I could get an okay clearance,
Mhm.
and then I'd be fine. I know clearance on the catheter isn't as good as clearance in a fistula or a graft, right? So
Mhm.
maybe things would have been okay had that been the case. But
Did they decide to stick with the catheter because you had a donor being worked up?
yeah, so
Okay.
I, I got sick October of 2019, and then
Mhm.
my workup was supposed to start March, April of 2020, and then the world shut down. So I did a lot of my tests. All that stuff was done, but like meeting with the team, doing any tests at UHN and stuff like that, like they couldn't. And so that shut down because they said the fastest I could have had it done was a year. If everything works out, you could do it in a year. So first everything shuts down. Then it's since transplant living donor transplants are considered elective surgery, so they're stopped as well. And so it's just kind of the start, stop, start, stop. So first they have to get mine, and then my brother's stuff, and he's busy, and so it's just well, it worked out obviously.
Mhm.
Yeah, so my brother got approved. He's in perfect health. It made his head swell even more. Like all the tests he had to do, he's like they
Right?
told me because they told him he was like once a kidney that's left grows to normal size, I could donate again based on my GFR, and I was like, all right, stop like rubbing it in, right? And so
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, so I mean, it was never really an issue. So
That's fantastic. So you got a good one. You got a really good one.
yeah, it works. I mean, I'm still the one thing they told me was like because I'm a lot larger than my brother, even with the weight loss.
Mhm.
And so like, okay, your creatinine's always going to be kind of higher, right? It's never going to be quite the same.
Mhm.
Because they told me when I was in the hospital after the transplant, one of the doctors was like, yeah, you need someone who's bigger than you to donate, and he's like, that's impossible, right? Because for
Mm.
someone to be that big and healthy enough to actually be able to be allowed to donate, it was like it's not going to happen unless
Right.
Shaq said,
Yeah.
or like somebody in the NBA or an NFL, like
I
they,
was gonna say, don't you know any
yeah,
NFL
like,
players or
hey guys,
NBA
can you
players?
help me out? Like I need, right? But unless someone with like kidney like the size of my head donated, it's not gonna happen. So, but I mean, it was okay. I mean, they found a little bit of rejection, and I think for anybody this is good for, I guess, anybody who is waiting transplant or maybe just had it. I think the best advice I got with the rejection, at least, was it's not if, but when, right? It's not, it's going to happen,
Right.
but it's just, can they catch it? Can they deal with it? So I had a little bit of rejection at the beginning. I mean, my creatinine was stable. It just wasn't falling as fast as the doctors thought it would. And then they're like, we're just going to the doctor literally said, we're going to beat your immune system back into submission. So they gave me a huge dose of prednisone that, kind of tapered off, and it worked. Right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay,
Prednisone is like our worst enemy and our best friend, I always say.
yeah, it's crazy because it does the job. Right. But
It
then
does.
at the beginning, they gave me 80 milligrams of prednisone.
Wow.
So I was just like, I remember I was watching the videos that they give you before discharge.
Mhm.
They give you 4 videos, and they're like, I was like, don't let anybody watch this when they're on like a heightened dose of prednisone. Don't tell them to watch it all four in a row, because I was just like, I was just like, cradling I was like freaking out,
Yeah.
right? And I remember when I got home, I was like, I didn't want to touch my dog. I was so scared.
Oh.
I was like, man, I'm gonna get something. Like my mom was like, you couldn't do anything. Like
Yeah.
you were basically
And that's the thing, right? Like it not only impacts your body,
your mind
but your
is.
mind is so altered
Mhm.
because of that. And like I joke about it now because I'm 13 years post transplant, but I remember like when I was on those higher doses of prednisone, I wouldn't sleep well. Like I was up all the time. I remember one time I just couldn't sleep and I was up scrubbing my kitchen floor, like hands and knees scrubbing it because I was like, I can't do anything else. And this has been
Yeah.
bothering me and I have all this energy. Let's
Yeah.
scrub the floor. Let's clean out the fridge. Like all of these crazy things that you're like, I could
Yeah.
either do cartwheels or I could scrub the floor because you're shaking inside sometimes, even.
Hmm.
And it's like, how do I get this out of me?
Yeah. The one good positive from the super high dose was my singing was insane.
Please enjoy Ivica's voice stretching 5 months post kidney transplant.
The big thing with why I couldn't sing, it wasn't so much like a structural or issue or anything like that. It's all energy, right? And
Okay.
so like I could be congested and I could be sick, won't mess with my singing all that much.
Hmm.
Um, but if you're tired, you got no shot. It's not so much like crooning. Like I could still sing jazz stuff and I could do easier things, but anything where I was singing operatically, where I was done.
Wow.
Like the analogy I use is the fuel gauge moves faster than the speedometer, right? Like as soon as I reach a certain point, it just falls, right? It just
Right.
immediately. If I keep it under a certain level, I can keep going for a little while.
Hmm.
But as soon as I try and do something more active, I'm done. Because like when I was on dialysis, the Kidney Foundation had the kidney walk, and the second year I wanted to test myself, see how much, because I wasn't sure, who knows how long I'm gonna have to wait,
Right.
how good is my, what kind of condition is my body, and so I was like, I'll try and do a half marathon, and so I walked a half marathon with my friend.
Wow.
I didn't. I got to 19 kilometers, and I was like, man, I can't do it anymore. He's
Hmm.
like, don't worry, I'll kind of carry you. I'm like, you're not big enough to carry me. You're like, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then like I took a break, got to 20, and at 20 to 21 was
Wow.
basically just I was like, I don't even know what I was doing. I was like, I've got to make it to Lake Ontario. That's where I was walking to. And I was like, if I
Oh.
can, so I was like, that I could do. But the thing about that is it's never really an intense, you're walking, but it's never anything too intense. Whereas singing, which people would think isn't intense at all, but
Hmm.
when you're trying to bust out high notes, your body's just like, yeah, no,
Wow.
like it's not happening. So I remember the prednisone just gives you this, like you said, like this huge amount of energy, and you're just like,
Superpower.
wired. And I was singing and I was like, oh my god, this shouldn't be possible, right? Like I can't use any of my core muscles because I'm sitting like this, and like you obviously just had the surgery, so I'm like, I'm not gonna be like, they tell you not to lift anything, and singing is essentially the same thing with. And I was just like, my voice is popping. I was like, things are gonna be great, oh my god, like if this is what it's like all the time, like this is gonna be amazing, this is better than before I was even sick. And then I was like, oh no, that was the prednisone. Because
Right.
the doses come down, and I'm just like, no, voice is back to kind of where it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, I was like, yeah, and back to the kind of the mental side is, I know one of the points we are going to talk about is pre and post, and I think mentally it's harder post transplant, and I know for some people maybe they would disagree, but for me when I was on dialysis it was like, just don't die, right? Like so it was like, just don't, there's so many complications that could happen, and like just don't die. And my family's like, yeah, don't worry about your career. Like one, I couldn't sing. Two, performing arts basically imploded for
Yes.
COVID, right?
Right.
Because they're like, you couldn't do anything.
You can't be in
And so I was
person.
like, can't do anything, right? And it's just like, okay. And like my voice doesn't record very well, so it's not like I could just start doing it. Like I sing the way I sing because of the space you're trying to fill and the people
Right.
and it. And so I was like, well, yeah, I'm like, so, okay, lose weight and don't die. That was my thing. And then you get the transplant and COVID kind of goes away. And now you're just like, all right, clock's ticking, like get your move on. And I'm just like, okay, but and plus you have the prednisone. So I'd never had anxiety before, and now I'm just like, it's gotten better. I've learned to manage it
Mm-hmm.
and certain things, but that was never there,
Yeah.
right? There was nothing, and now it's just like on top of just general worries that you'd have being a transplant patient.
Yeah.
Then you're like the medication is just fueling that,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the big differences for me, at least. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with you. It is like for me, dialysis was difficult mentally because you're stuck, right? Like you
Mhm.
just feel like you're kind of like in a waiting place and you're forced to just sit there and you're stuck,
Yeah.
which when you're young, like I was 24, so similar to you, like it's just you're stuck there waiting. You don't have anywhere that you can go because your whole focus is like they just say, like you said, just don't die.
Yeah,
Do what
that's
we
it.
tell you, eat what we tell you, show up when we tell you to show up, and rest when on your off days and like take care of yourself. But in your head, you're like, okay, I do dialysis for this amount of time. That day's gone. So the next day,
Mhm.
you're like, how do I pack an entire day full of seeing people and doing things that I want to do?
Yeah.
Because I have a little bit of energy from the dialysis, and then you're like, okay, and now I crash again, and now it's back to, and
Yeah.
it's this weird cycle, right? So for
Yeah.
me, that was rough, but post transplant, you're right, because you get all of these anxieties about, am I taking my meds on time? Am I taking them properly? Now going into the world of COVID, like, am I going to get COVID? How is that going to impact my transplant? And then even that thought of rejection, like at the very beginning of my transplant, it's much better now, but I always used to look at my pills when I would set them out and put them together and be like, this is the only barrier between me and going back on dialysis.
Mhm.
So looking at that sometimes would just be like a mind twist to me because I was like, how are these small pills keeping me from that? Like
Yeah.
it's hard to wrap your mind around the all of like anxieties and the depression and like trying to stay positive because you do have this new kidney in
Mhm.
you, and it's almost like here's your new kidney, you're healed, go live this beautiful perfect
Yeah.
life now, right?
Oh man, yeah, totally. I like that's another guilt. Like at the beginning, you get guilt because you're like, okay, this was so easy for me compared to some other people, right? Then you have to remind yourself, we're like, no, most of the people never have to be on dialysis and have this chronic disease, right? And I think that's one thing that they don't. Not to say that they don't stress, but they don't really. I don't know explain, but just the chronic nature of the condition, right?
Yes.
Like they will say transplant is not a cure; it is a treatment, which
Yes.
they're very clear about. But I think it's just knowing that you're always living with this kind of worry.
Yeah.
You have to keep coming for blood work every 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Like we know it's been over a year, but you just got to keep doing it. We got to make sure, which is great, right? Like they'll find
Yes.
anything right quick, but it's kind of like okay, like please right.
Let that let
And
up.
so like the way you're saying, like you said, like you have this new kidney, like get out and go. And I kind of feel the same way.
Hmm.
Definitely, right? Like they're like my family's like, hey, you got your voice back, like get working. And so at the moment, I kind of feel like I'm in this catch-22 where do I keep going with singing because like my voice is back and like I can do it, or do I just let it go and go to something else and really be able to use my time? I'm kind of grappling with that right now.
Hmm.
And so I'm just trying to figure it out. But it's just you get on this pressure where people are like, all right, like get going. And I was like, yeah, I would, but it's a bit more difficult. So yeah.
The best advice that I was given from a transplant recipient friend of mine was, now that you have the ability to do whatever you want because physically you're treated,
Yeah.
it's time to choose what you want to do with that
Mhm.
extra life that you've been given, right? So
Yeah.
if the things that you're doing in your day to day are not giving you the same amount of joy that they used to, just trash it and move on.
Mhm.
like like
Yeah.
find what it is that you really love to do.
I'm just trying like I really want to do it.
Yeah.
And so like I have one audition left. Hopefully I get an audition for the COC chorus and I can see kind of then what I could do.
Hmm.
And plus there's not the live, you're kind of a liability and you're afraid of everything because my doctor was like, yeah, sure, you can perform anywhere. And like for me, so I just got COVID
Hmm.
and I got it in the one event where I was singing. And it's just also people, even employers think about that too, right? So yeah, you're immunocompromised and they're like, well, you're going into a profession that's like, I mean, singers generally are I don't want to say germophobic, but are fairly health conscious because they know, you get a bug and you're done, right? You're gonna,
Right.
but it's yeah, that's something I'm kind of struggling with, but I'm
Hmm.
working on.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that I didn't anticipate when I was on dialysis. So
Right.
when I was on dialysis, I was like, oh, everything will work out. And now I look back and I'm like, maybe I should have spent that time. Because the one thing with dialysis is, sure, you can't do as much, but if you're thinking of switching, that's like the perfect time, right?
Right.
Because you have all the time. You're sitting there for hours. You can start learning something new, doing something.
So I'm wondering if you can tell our listeners just a little bit about what this transplant has done for you and your life.
You come back to normalcy, right? I think people when they're sick and then they get it, they're hoping for like, oh my God, and it's amazing, but it's hard because it's so good of a feeling that you quickly forget what dialysis was like and what being sick was like. So it's a little bit more difficult to compare sometimes. And then you remember and it's like, no, I used to wake up and I couldn't pee, right? And I couldn't do anything. And I'd have to be like I could drink a half a liter of water a day and they'd be like, hey, keep it off and you can't eat this, can't eat that. And like now I kind of stick to a similar diet that I did when I was on dialysis, but I think it's a lot easier, right? It's easier to stick with it if you're allowed to indulge. I can have some cheese, I can have some whatever.
Right.
But I think, yeah, for me, at least, I think the biggest thing was with the singing and like my career was, I think, the thing that was most affected, right? I think it obviously my family drew together, so that was great,
Hmm.
and I tried to keep most people out of it because I didn't want to do anything too crazy, but it gave me the opportunity to at least go out on my own terms and try my best at my best, right? It wasn't like I was cut short because of the disease. The fact that I got my voice back, I could at least try again. Whether it works out or not is undetermined, but I had that agency back to at least be able to try it. I remember it was okay for a while. Like I could still sing on my off days, and it wasn't terrible. And then it got to a point where I was at my brother's house, and the neighbors were singing "Happy Birthday" in the backyard. Anytime I hear "Happy Birthday," I'll jump in, whatever. And I jump in and I go to sing, and I go to sing like "Happy Birthday," and my voice just died.
Oh,
And it wasn't even high. Like it wasn't even a crack. Like I don't even know what happened. Something imploded. It was just the worst thing I'd ever done. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I can't even sing happy birthday. Right. And I'm like, this is not good. And then the first thing I woke up when I got my transplant, I mean, initially I was worried because of the intubation, right? I was like, because they say something could happen.
right.
But like, I knew I was in good hands because they already knew I was a singer when I was going to ask them, be like, oh, I know you can't really do anything, but just be careful when you're doing it. They're like, we know you're an opera singer. It's okay. And I was like, I didn't know how you knew that, but okay, cool. And I woke up in the room. I'm already kind of loopy, and I'm already singing, and it's already fine. And I was like, "Holy crap!"
Oh,
Right,
that's
right. And like,
amazing.
this is great. And then there was also there's the if for anybody who's been to UHM in the Monk building, that elevator atrium in Monk on any floor. This is the seventh floor, has the greatest acoustics
Really?
anywhere like I've ever been. Like any church, it doesn't make any sense. But I'd go there, I was there for a while, so I'd be walking as much as I could, and every time I passed by, I just let it loose, and I was like, okay, everything's back.
That's so cool.
You don't really realize it because it's the one thing was singing was effortless. Before it was like if I wanted to sing when I was on dialysis, it took all of my strength to even just get some stuff out, right? And I had to
Right.
be on an off day. I had to have had good clearance, right? I had to have eaten well, slept well, all this stuff, right? And this was just like you could have put me upside down and like been doing it like whatever, and I could have just sung anything, right?
That's
It
amazing.
was just it just comes out, right? It won't stop. So I think that for me was huge, right? I had that back,
That's
that
beautiful.
that kind of sense of identity.
This might be putting you on the spot and you can say no if you want, but can you say happy birthday to you? Like, can you sing that for us? Just
Sing
this
it.
one line?
Happy birthday to you, like that.
That's so fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that sounds so much better than our happy birthday songs.
yeah. That's my job in my family. Is I start
Fun.
singing a little louder, so it kind of drowns them out. But if they're singing well, I'll sing quieter and let them sing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so fantastic. I'm wondering if you have any advice for specifically young people who are living with kidney disease or who are recently diagnosed, or even people who are post-transplant, about what you've been through and what you could share with them.
I think the biggest thing for me, I think it's a lot of the psychological and mental side of it.
Hmm.
The physical side, you can't really do much about, right?
Right.
It's you kind of try and stay active as much as you can. You'd be surprised what you're actually capable of doing. Like I said earlier, like I was able to do a half marathon, and I'm not in particularly any good shape. Like I'm, average at best, and I was able to do it. So the mental side, find a support system and lean on it as hard as you can,
Mm-hmm.
like because you're gonna have to. There's no, as strong as you might think you are, and as resolute or indomitable spirit, it's gonna hit you,
Hmm.
right? Like it doesn't care who you are,
Right.
right? So find people. This is before and after. I think for me it was even more important after, because when you're on dialysis, it's basically feel great, go to dialysis, feel tired, sleep, repeat, right? So you don't really have time or the capacity to do much
Hmm.
on in terms of, you're not afraid of as much. Whereas when I was after transplant, I found the Kidney Foundation has transplant peer support groups. I think just talking with anybody who understands it. So speaking with you, Candice,
Hmm.
yeah, take every opportunity you can, and because as much as people want to sympathize and want to understand and want to help, unless it's happened to you, like it's very difficult to really help people. So
Hmm.
finding other transplant recipients, whatever it is, doesn't have to be kidney. I one of the best things that happened to me was, I think when I was 4 or 5 months out, this was on, I had an Instagram account just for my singing, and it says I'm a transplant recipient. So I was able to meet other younger transplant recipients, and we had a group, and it was so different because we can talk about our problems, and so
Right.
reach out on social media or anything like that. I think we're the most welcoming people you're going to find,
Yeah.
and understanding, right? A lot
Hmm.
of people are like, okay, whatever, but like, oh, you're one of us, right? That you're in this new kind of, I don't want to say tribe, but they get it. Other people
Yes.
get it, and they can, even just talking, I find, like, even today has been very therapeutic, just being able to talk and know other people get it, other people understand, other people have been through it, because you will feel like no one else understands anything that's going on. Yeah, nothing's better than just letting it out and talking and finding those people who get it.
That's really good advice. Thank you. And so now we have our amazing Margot. I should have called you Magnificent Margot, maybe, right? Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you. And I know that this is only a month or a little bit more than a month now after your retirement. So we're excited to hear all about how retirement is now. I'm wondering if you could introduce yourself to our listeners.
My name's Margot Mitchell. I have been a social worker in the transplant program at Toronto General Hospital, University Health Network since 2001. I'm recently retired. I worked most of that time with the kidney transplant team, but also because the social workers there cover each other, all the organs in transplant, including liver, who also has a living donor program.
Fantastic. And so, what drew you to social work? What made you want to get into that?
Oh, we're going back a long way. I became aware of that as a young person, people were approaching me with problems, and I didn't know these people very well sometimes, and I didn't feel very well equipped to support them with their problems. And I became aware of liking the idea of being able to help people, but needing to find out how to do that, acquire the skills and knowledge to do that. And then I came across the profession of social work, and I was drawn in at that point. And it's a very good choice. You work with people who are endlessly interesting, inspiring, and it's been a good run.
Yeah. Wow. And so, thinking about that run, what has made that career so meaningful?
Yeah, I think I've always worked in medical social work, and I started off in oncology for the first 20 years. And there's a very robust need,
Mhm.
as Ivica was just saying, a need for people to tell their stories, to be heard. I think that's the least of the role, for sure. It's a baseline kind of um, commodity, if you will, that we can offer. And we do help guide people through the institution or the process, help them if there's knowledge gaps. We do try to connect them with other people who have been through it if that seems to be a need that they have.
Hmm.
There's always a role. And the longer you're in something and you've heard from many, many, many different people who are actually going through it, the more effective you are as a conduit to help people prepare as much as possible, to adjust as much as possible, to get the most out of their medical treatment, and to live as full a life as they can while they're waiting for treatment, perhaps while they're going through treatment, and reach out into the world again after their treatment, and so they can live their lives.
And we've talked about it today, that whole idea of the emotional and psychological aspects of being diagnosed with something, and going through that diagnosis to treatment to either dialysis or a transplant, and that whole journey that we go through. And you go through kind of these waves of, you feel like, okay, I can do this now. This makes sense. I'm in a survival mode where I'm going to do this every day. And then you get waves where, it's difficult to just get out of bed in the morning, whether it's, after a diagnosis or during treatment or even post transplant. And I wonder, as a social worker, what are some of those things that you would maybe sit down with somebody and help them and cope with that kind of traumatic incident that's just happened? Because really, a diagnosis and an organ failing is very traumatic, and it kind of comes in waves. It's not often all at once or all at the end.
There's that phrase that we hear so often, one day at a time.
Mm.
But when we just say the phrase, it doesn't necessarily get us to a place of dealing with things. It's really parsing out what that means to each individual and getting through each day. And as you mentioned, there can be some days where people may feel, all of us may feel, that we just can't face the day.
Hmm.
But then you can say to yourself, you can take on a self-inquiry as to what does it mean to get through this day? What do I have to do today? Do I have to attend dialysis? Do I just have to watch my fluid level? And oh yeah, I'm going to be, those people are coming to visit and they always bring that food I can't have. So what are the essential things I have to do to get through this day? And tomorrow may be a better day. Let's see what tomorrow brings. If you think about the whole of time stretching out in front of you, trying to deal with all of that, it can be very overwhelming, just too much to get through. So I would often have people tell me what one day at a time means for them.
Hmm.
It's going to mean something different to everyone. It's also going to mean for the same individual, it's going to mean something different each day, perhaps. Good information is foundational to people being able to take care of themselves, no matter what the condition is they have. Chronic condition of any kind, it may be kidney failure, liver failure, but also after transplant. We would consider having a transplant a chronic condition where people have to self-manage and take care of themselves. And I put so much emphasis on self-management because when people are able to take care of themselves and follow the medical advice, they're probably going to feel as well as they can feel in their situation.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're feeling better, you can cope better. When you're feeling that you have enough energy to meet life's demands,
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend that used to say, when I feel equal to the task. And not every day you feel equal to a specific task, or maybe the task is getting through the day.
Right.
But it's when you're feeling your best because of your own efforts, and maybe dialysis is part of what helps you to feel better, then you're more able to cope. And when people are able to fit a few more things of their regular life into their day, then that's a quality of life.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I had I decided to switch from hemodialysis to peritoneal partway through. And so I had, well, you'd remember the feeling of having your catheter here. And then I also had just had surgery to have the peritoneal catheter in my abdomen. So I was like, how am I going to wash myself for the first little while? You find creative ways with tape and Ziploc bags, right? But I remember I have very unruly hair as well. And my mom said to me, you know what? Don't worry about that. Will it make you feel better if I wash your hair one night? And just that simple act, like she washed my hair for me, she dried it, she styled it, and I just felt like a whole new person. Just those simple tasks sometimes when you're on dialysis are really tiring. So it was just a tiny little thing that made it easier for me. Thinking about those tasks, like you said, of what can we accomplish, and maybe there's somebody who can help you with those tasks too, if you don't feel up to the challenge.
Yes, and having those people around that are kind of listening and really have an empathy for what you're going through can be so valuable, even if they're there not stepping in, but kind of watching out and ready to step in if needed, because people struggle sometimes to find that balance, and caregivers can struggle to find a balance between being there for somebody and letting that person achieve whatever they can achieve. Nobody enjoys being what they might call a burden.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we had another word, because for someone you love, no one's a burden. It's just the wrong word,
Yeah.
but it's a strain perhaps. And having that person just at the ready, who you know is in your court, is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
The other person that I always think is a good support person is what I would call the challenger. People talk about having little cheats where they're maybe ignoring the rule for to do this, usually small things, and very often they've talked with their team about it, and these little cheats are okay. If the cheats went on, or if the cheat was after transplant when people aren't taking their medication, then that challenger is a person who the recipient, the transplant recipient, knows is in their court, but is willing to say to them, look, what are you doing? Take a look. This isn't safe.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see you do your best, and to try to challenge what's going on with that person and see if they can help get them back on track. There's so many different roles that a support person plays. It's hard to kind of capture
Mm-hmm.
all of them.
Mm-hmm. And you were nodding your head when she mentioned the word burden.
Yeah. Well, I recently read a quote about burden, and it was that, I mean, and I think all of us go through that. We feel like a burden, and the person said, a burden is something you're saddled with that you don't want to keep doing, and you're not. And the fact that someone's there taking care of you, helping you, they've chosen to continue to help you. They're not saddled. They're not. They're actively doing it. So I think that's the difference, right? You're certainly, yeah, it's not ideal, but it's not something that they are fighting against. They want to help you.
Mm-hmm.
So that just popped in my head as soon as the word burden came up.
Mm-hmm. I think we often forget that the people that we love want to help us, and they often don't know how either, right?
Yeah.
And for some of us who might be more stubborn than others, we might not be able to express our needs either. I wonder, Margot, if you have any advice for those of us who have difficulties asking for help, because I think most of us would agree we don't want to ever ask for help because we're already feeling like we're asking for too much, right?
Yeah, you're right, Candace. That is a huge thing people have to negotiate. It is very hard in our individualistic, I'm very independent culture
Hmm.
to ask for help. I think, though, I think when there's an understanding between the person needing help at times and the caregiver, that the caregiver would give a signal.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be asking for help. It might be an agreed upon word that they've agreed upon. So in public, you could just bring that word into it, and the person would know. For example, if a person's at a social event and getting really tired, and instead of announcing to the room that they're tired and they need to go, there might be just sort of a discreet word that the caregiver. So there could be those secret signals, but mostly I encourage people to put things on the table, and for the caregiver to say, I really want to be there for you. I don't know, as you said, Candace, very wisely, they don't know how to help. And I need your help to let me know when you need that help.
Mm.
Put it on the table. And if the recipient can come to some sort of understanding,
Hmm.
perhaps not acceptance, but some sort of understanding that this person wants to help, and to let them in when they really, really, really need it, not before. I always tell people who are ready to go to surgeries, like donor and recipient,
Hmm.
there's going to be pain. There's going to be, the recipient is already feeling that what the donor is doing is really, really, really amazing. They don't want to see them have any pain. There's going to be pain. And when you can't see each other because you can't go to each other's rooms initially, you're going to be seeing each other on a video screen like this. You're going to see pain in each other's faces. So don't put the energy into trying to hide it. Just know that there's going to be pain,
Hmm.
and know that we're treating it, and know that trying to put on a brave face for that other person takes a lot of energy, and it doesn't work in the end. And so putting cards on the table there again, and being patient with one another. I know you don't like me helping this way, but I can see that you're so tired, and I really want to do this for you.
Yeah. One thing that we talked a lot about was that guilt that a lot of us transplant recipients have in many different aspects. I'm wondering if you've experienced dealing with that post-transplant guilt, and any advice you'd have for those of us who are still struggling with it.
Yeah, guilt is part of life, isn't it? And it can crop up. I think we're all good people, and it can crop up in ways that takes by surprise. What you mentioned, the guilt of being on dialysis and getting a transplant relatively quickly over somebody who doesn't have that option.
Mhm.
You know, for a living donor to come along and get somebody, either prevent somebody from needing dialysis or having them on dialysis a very short period of time, does everyone involved, everyone affected by this disease, a good deed.
Mhm.
It's, if you're getting off of dialysis and not being on the waiting list, then the person who does have to be on the waiting list, who doesn't have that choice, is going to get their transplant so much sooner as well. And so there is, one could look at society and say that, and realize that there's inequities to people who are successful in their lives, in their careers, who have a better financial situation, to know people who are also successful in their lives, have a stable financial situation, who can take that time from work. There's a safety net for these people if there's complications. And there is a difference in who comes forward for living donation. These are people who can afford to do so in many cases. And there again, there is perhaps a privileged group of people who are able to receive a living donor. And if all those people are on the waiting list, it would be very, very much longer list.
Mm-hmm. So thinking about that whole process that the two of us have been through with having a living donor, one of those pieces was that psychological workup or the psychosocial part of this that now you're laughing about.
Well, no, it's just because my brother, when he did it, he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna mess with them," right? And so when he did the psych evaluation, at the end, he's like, "I get paid for this, right?" And I was like, "Man,
Oh
like,
no.
no, he like they knew he was joking too,
Right.
right?" But I was like, "You're just lucky the person knew you were joking,
Had a
right?"
good
'Cause I'm
sense
like,
of humor.
yeah, because otherwise, I'm like, "Please don't say that."
Poor social workers having to listen to us.
Some people say, "Did I pass?" At the end of our discussion.
Yeah.
Did I pass?
Yeah.
No, there's still the written exam.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it is. You think that it is like a pass or fail, right? Of do I get past this? But thinking about that workup for us, is there something there that would make somebody not approved either as a recipient or as a donor throughout that process?
When social work does the social work assessment, whether it's for the donor or the recipient, it's about readiness for transplant. And probably the first part of that is, do they know what they're getting into? So even though we anticipate success for transplants, there can be complications, and some donors and some recipients just don't have the same experience that they had hoped for, that we had hoped for.
Right.
So acknowledgement that that can be the case is important, and there are some certain a number of items we'd like them to understand might be a common complication or a worrisome complication.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this whole process called informed consent, and the person proposing the treatment, the doctor, is really responsible for that informed consent, but all members of the team contribute to it.
Mm-hmm.
Donors and recipients contribute to it. They've been reading, they've been talking to people to find out, what are the things I need to know? What's this really going to be like?
Mm-hmm.
There's manuals to read, and they can be kind of technical, but really talking to peers is really very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the information piece and so if people don't know things, we can help to fill in the gaps.
Right.
If there's a lot they don't know about, if they're confused about something, we might refer them back to their doctor for further discussion, just to round out their understanding of an important issue or what could be an important issue. There's the willingness. For donors, there's got to be that willingness, of course, lack of coercion.
Mm-hmm.
We joked before, but we are listening for that.
Right.
And most situations where it's family are straightforward, but
Mm-hmm.
there can be some very complex relationships as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the social worker would spend a lot of time with that person to really parse out what's going on, making sure, again, that donor is giving willingly. And what does willingly mean? Well, for most people, it's pretty straightforward. But again, in those complex situations, it can require a lot of discussion.
And that's so complex. Family dynamics are are so important when you're going through something like this. And I'm wondering for yourself, did you find that you had any changes with your brother post transplant or with anybody else in your family?
I find that it's been actually quite good. I think if anything, we're closer, certainly, because my brother and I aren't quite alike. Like my oldest brother and I are very much alike. Whereas my middle brother, well, this brother, we shared a room for like 20 years, so we're kind of opposite. Like
Oh,
we're like,
wow.
you know. But I think it's been okay. With my mom, it was interesting because she's been like, you think that I was the most sick person in my family, but my mom, like, she's way past me, right? She's had 2 strokes,
Oh,
breast cancer, heart attack, diabetes, like everything, right?
wow.
So she knew what it was going to be like for me, but I think at the same time, it was like knowing when to, communicating when I needed help, when it was like, listen, I'm just going to talk for like an hour, and like, you just have to sit in the same room. You don't actually have to say anything. Just, she's like, yeah, cool, no worry, like, they get it. Yeah, the dynamics haven't changed all that much. I mean, my brother always jokes with me. He's like, "You owe me your life," and I was like, "Well, it's true." I'm like, "You're just stating a fact, right?" But
Right.
but it was never like that. Like my family, we're all about acts of service. Like we're not physically affectionate. No words of affirmation. None of that. It's just like, you need this, okay, done. Right? It
Mhm.
was never like an issue. So, and it's kind of the same way now. Yeah,
Mhm.
anytime he's like, yo, if you gain weight, like I'm gonna get you. And I was like, look, I don't want to gain weight either. I'm like, I get it,
Right.
right? But he's okay. Like it's his personality is the same, and it's the dynamics are, yeah. If anything, we're closer, which is
Mhm.
which is kind of nice.
That's fantastic. And we talked a lot about how important that peer support is too, whether it's through formal mentorship programs like
Mhm.
the Kidney Foundation or just informally through Instagram. I'm wondering, Margot, if you have any insights into what you think about peer support and the importance of that for those of us going through these journeys.
Peer support is unique and can offer people what healthcare providers just can't. Um, I mentioned before that manuals, the information we give to patients is often quite technical, but what does that mean in their daily life?
Hmm.
You know, that's what peers can offer. And peers can say, here's what happened to me. And, when I talk to recipients, candidates who have talked to people who've had transplant before, they take away two things, either success, sometimes failure, but also an appreciation for what everyday life might be like, what it's really like to take the pills, what it's the importance of the blood work, how they get their lives back in degrees perhaps, but they get their lives back. And one thing that I find that peers can really offer is a sense of how full life can be after the transplant, that it's not just about the blood work, not just about the pills and going to appointments. People can be athletes like Ivica, they can get back to their career singing. I often point them to the Transplant Olympics, and they kind of perk up and they say, Olympics, what do they mean? I said, well, sometimes it's about the three-legged race, but other times it's very challenging competitions. And then I also point them to what a heart transplant recipient had done, was mountain climbing in Antarctica
Hmm.
uh, with his cardiologist, not because he needed a cardiologist, but that was her interest as well. And I can talk about this because it's out in the public domain and so
Yes.
on, but I do encourage them to explore that kind of thing in some way, whether it's Transplant Olympics website, talking to other people who've had transplant and who have gone on to go to travel, have family reunions, have a career, get back to the gym, but to take on, and they're encouraged if they haven't had an active lifestyle, that might be an important thing to talk to their peers about as well. But it's something that no healthcare provider can really offer if we haven't gone through that experience.
Mhm.
And you always have to caution people that that's one person's experience. That's not necessarily going to be your own.
Yes.
I think most people have the sense that that's the truth of it. And hope. It offers a hope. I recall a story from many years ago where a person who needed a liver transplant actually met up with a mentor who had had a transplant, and that the person who was needing it asked if they could touch the person who had already had the transplant. And somehow for that person, it was really reassuring that whatever they felt when they touched that person, they felt real. They felt just like me, just like somebody else. It was really therapeutic. So the peers can offer that sort of thing. It's invaluable.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Margot, for joining us and talking about your incredible career and all of the advice that you have for those of us who have gone through this. I know that the UHN team definitely misses you, even though you've only been gone a few weeks, and it'll be difficult to replace you because you are one in a million for sure. So thank you so much for sharing and for all of the incredible work you've done over the years for all of us patients. It's remarkable to have someone like you in our corner. And for you, Ivica, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your story so openly.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. I think the PR, like anything to share a story and to show things get better and what it can do, I think I'll do anything I can.
I'm wondering if you have one final thing that you'd like to sing us out with, or just say goodbye or something fun.
Goodbye. I can do that.
Wonderful.
I don't want to do too much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So much fun. That's fantastic. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Living Transplant Podcast. If you did, please leave us a review and share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to Living Transplant wherever you are listening today. If you have any ideas for podcast episodes, you can reach out to us at livingorgandonation@uhn.ca or on social at GiveLifeUHN. For more information about living organ donation, you can visit us at www.livingorgandonation.ca. Special thanks to Lead Podcasting for editing this episode and for production support. Thanks to Paula Neves, our advisor to the show. I'm your host, Candice Coghlan. Thanks for spending your time with us. Now I would like to leave you with Ivica singing a beautiful piece called Amor ti vieta, 1 year post-kidney transplant. Enjoy.